First keynote speaker comes from Siemens, and as the head of sales data services, he is responsible for Siemens industrial cybersecurity service portfolio, as well as for MindSphere, the cloud-based open IoT operating system in Finland and in the Baltic countries. And like we did yesterday, we have some entry songs. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ilmari Veijola from Siemens.
All right, thanks a lot for the introduction, Lauri. Good morning, everyone. Nice to see at least so many people here. Hopefully last night wasn't too rough on you. But anyway, it's nice to be here in my hometown of Oulu. I'm an Oulu native, lived here for 26 years until I had to move to Espoo because of work. My name is Ilmari Veijola. As Lauri already said, I'm head of sales at Siemens Data Services business unit, and my main responsibility is MindSphere IoT, which is also the topic of today. So MindSphere, an open cloud-based IoT operating system. A lot of hype words put together. I guess Siemens is the undisputed champion of doing this, putting hype words together, creating acronyms out of them. So I usually like to start off with this slide right here, just to let everybody know that today is not about all these hype words. It's more about concretely what we can do with IoT, how it can help us in transforming our business. But on a more serious note, digitalization, it will change everything. It's a huge opportunity for those who will embrace it. Next $1 trillion will be earned with data. However, there's a downside to it. It's a huge risk for those who don't act fast enough. So for example, over half of the companies on the Fortune 500 list have disappeared since 2000, and the main reason being digitalization. But looking at the bright side, the opportunities that we have with data, interesting fact is that the amount of data that's being collected globally, it's increasing a lot. Over 50% of the data stored and collected globally has been collected during the last 365 days. However, it's not used well enough. Only 0.5% of that data is being analyzed or utilized in any way to create additional value. Second statistics I like to show is that every day 5.5 million new things, machines, whatever, are being connected to the internet, and the number is being projected at 50 billion devices by the year 2020. So this is the so-called IoT inception that we're seeing on the market since 2009. And as you can see, the amount of data that's being collected and generated, it's increasing exponentially. This increase is not coming from the consumer field anymore. Everybody has their smartphone, they have their laptops already. This increase in data is coming from industrial applications, machines, it's coming from the infrastructure, it's coming from machines or so-called things. So now the main question is that I would like to answer to everybody today. What do we do with this data, and how can MindSphere help in utilizing this data, turning the data into real business value? 3 paradigm shifts that we have identified in this sector. First one being the importance of software applications. Hardware is no longer that important. If you think about it from your personal perspective, everybody has a smartphone, but it doesn't really matter if it's an iPhone or Samsung or whatever. Hardware is what it is, as long as it's connected and as long as you have downloaded the apps that you want to run, it serves the purpose, right? Second really important point being the culture of openness. The idea behind this is that there are so many new technologies popping up in this sector. We are talking about 5G, narrowband networks, LoRa networks, machine learning, all this. So it's really impossible for one company, even a company as big as Siemens, to effectively use and develop all these technologies. So that's why the culture of openness is one of the key things in MindSphere, And in the future, the product development, it will not happen within the walls of a single company. It will happen in agile ecosystems where smaller companies are contributing onto the same platform based on their niche technology knowledge. That's how we can effectively utilize all these new technologies across the board. Finally, the end game is to transform these businesses. You have a lot of examples from the consumer field. You have your Spotify, you have your Uber, digital services that have really transformed how business is being done. And that's what we're starting to see in, for example, the industrial side as well. All right, so coming to the technology side of it, why do we use cloud? I guess to most of you this is already familiar technology and you know the reason why, but just to recap, in the cloud we can connect a global fleet of assets into a centralized location. We have virtually unlimited storage and computing capacity in the cloud data centers. We can run seamless software updates. We have the ability to integrate various data sources together. That's when analytics become really interesting, when you put data 1 and data 2 together and see what the correlation is. And also the scalability features of the cloud enable us to come up with these new pay-per-use business models, for example. All right, so what's so different about MindSphere then? There are tons of cloud service providers in the market, and I think this slide, it shows pretty well really where MindSphere is located in this area. If you're talking about a pure cloud service, infrastructure as a service like AWS or Microsoft Azure, that's really what you get. It's only the virtual machines, the data center capacity for you to develop, maintain, and run all of your own services. So this light green area right here represents what the user has to develop and manage themselves. Moving on to the platform as a service, there's a little bit more things done by the service provider, and a pure software as a service like Gmail, for example, is just a software that the users run and really have no influence on how to maintain or develop it. When we look at MindSphere in this respect, of course, since Siemens is a traditional hardware supplier, hardware is our business, it's always been. We have started development of this I/O stack from the bottom up. So we've developed a MindConnect agent for connecting all types of devices into the MindSphere system. Then there's a platform maintained, updated by Siemens. All the so-called basic features of a cloud system are there, like user authentication and all that type of thing that everybody needs. So those are being done by Siemens, and the MindSphere user doesn't have to worry about it. And then when we come to the top of the stack, where we really analyze this data, it's all about, of course, Siemens analytics services, mainly based on our domain experience, but also we've opened it up to virtually any player to come in and publish their analytics, their tools, their services on top of this platform. And that's what really enables this type of ecosystem joint development approach. So MindSphere IoT stack, in short, I really like this slide and this picture because it really simplifies what we're talking about. We have 3 layers. First of all, the connectivity layer, then the cloud layer itself, and on top, the application layer. Starting from the connectivity, we are open in that layer, of course. So we're not talking about just connecting Siemens devices. We're able to connect to virtually any device on the market, whether it's Siemens or not, whether it's brand new or a legacy system. That's why we support open standards. And on top of hardware connectivity, we can implement software-based connectivity agents that can basically be customized to fit any machine, any protocol, or any device. So the point is to connect everything to MindSphere, not only Siemens, and of course not only industry. Siemens is present in mainly every aspect of the modern infrastructure. So we're talking about building technologies, energy, healthcare. MindSphere will be the common platform for all of Siemens businesses. Coming to the cloud layer, open in that sense as well. We're running MindSphere on top of Cloud Foundry platform, meaning that it really doesn't care what the underlying cloud infrastructure is. The current version is running on SAP data centers, but later on this year we're deploying it on AWS, after that Azure, so on and so forth. All the most commonly known cloud platforms will become supported, and it's even going to be possible for you to run MindSphere on your own on-premise server as well. And finally, the application layer, easy analogy, it's sort of like the App Store on your iPhone. It's an open software development platform where anybody can join, come in, and deploy their software solutions. So culture of openness really on every level of the IoT stack. That's what MindSphere is all about. All right, so having a look at the connectivity first. Currently, we have 3 ways of doing that. We have ready-made products, as Siemens likes to do, IoT gateways, basically they're hardened industrial PCs that really can be plugged and run in order to collect data from your devices into the cloud. Device integration is coming in our first PLCs and machine tool controllers. There's already an embedded MindConnect connectivity agent. And then when we talk about connecting legacy systems or let's say third-party systems with some more unfamiliar protocols to us, you can use a open source software stack to customize this connectivity agent into the third-party device. Main thing what we have to keep in mind when we talk about connectivity and collecting data and all this is the privacy aspect of it or the security aspect of it. Key takeaway on MindSphere is that the data ownership always remains with the customer, meaning that the MindSphere user always owns the data. Siemens only acts as a data custodian. We don't have any rights to use or access this data unless otherwise agreed. And regarding data security otherwise, of course, we're following the most common industry standards and how we actually accomplish the security of the moving data. It's of course crypted, SSL crypted, HTTPS, data flowing through the internet, sort of similar to what everybody is using in their internet banking these days. Every MindConnect API is unique, so every connectivity box, for example, has a unique ID which you feed into the cloud tenant while you're configuring the device, so the cloud knows that it's talking to the right device and the device knows that it's talking to the right cloud tenant. Simple as that. So the idea is that getting started with MindSphere and IoT and all these digitalizations, we're not talking about weeks or months proof of concept or demo projects. We're talking about 15 minutes of connecting, onboarding your device onto MindSphere, getting your MindSphere user account, a web-based account, and running the ready-made service, so it can be done in a single day. The idea is that not a lot of companies today know what IoT will mean for them in 1 year's time, let alone in 5 years. So this is an easy way to get started, get the feeling of it, start collecting your data model, and start throwing ideas around what would be the most efficient way of utilizing this data. One of the out-of-the-box analytics that comes standard with the MindSphere user account is our Fleet Manager. It's basically a visualization of the data that you've collected and a map view of the assets that you have onboarded and deployed on MindSphere. So it's just really giving you transparency of your installed fleet and the data that's being collected. Not really analytics in the real sense of the word, but a really good starting point of getting the transparency of your fleet and start thinking about what kind of tools you would like to implement on top of this type of system. All right, so some words about the openness and the ecosystem that we're building right now. As I mentioned earlier, we are open on every level of the IoT stack, meaning that our ecosystem partners they have a lot of different roles to play. It's not only about the app development. And some of the companies listed here are some of the biggest global partnerships that Siemens has already made. And in Finland, we are now in the process of building a more local ecosystem. We are inviting small and medium-sized, and why not even big corporations to join us and provide their analytics services value on top of this platform. So there's, of course, important consulting work, finding the use cases, sparring with the customers that how will you use IoT, where are the low-hanging fruits, how can we get the maximum benefits out of this. Really important work, and usually the most difficult work. App developers, of course, to get some additional features on MindSphere. System integrators, in my mind, a really important role for these partners, because finally in this IT space and in the cloud, we have the possibility of integrating not only your, for example, automation system, but to integrate data from your MES, from your ERP, from your quality system, logistics, wherever. And that's when it starts really becoming interesting. We've been looking at this automation system data for the last 20 years locally at site. It doesn't change if you move it to the cloud. But when you combine it with some other type of data and find the correlation between the two, that's where you really start talking about value. World is filled with analytics and technology. You have your IBM Watsons, Microsoft BI tools. So why should Siemens come up with their own? It's just probably not going to be as good and more expensive. So we decided not to. We just invite these guys in to provide these tools on top of the MindSphere platform. And the main idea is that our customers who are using MindSphere, they are not locked with Siemens as a vendor. They will use Siemens devices if they want to. They don't have to. They will use whatever cloud service suits them best. We don't care. And when it comes to handling this data, analytics, of course, we will be offering Siemens analytics, Siemens services, and it will be good in the domain that we know what to do. But this enables our customers to choose the software, choose the tools that serve their business first. And that I think is a winning concept, and openness, as I said, is one of the key things in the next 5 years when it comes to survival of these platform concepts. Connectivity partners are there also, mainly hardware developers that want to enhance the functionality of their device by embedding a MindConnect agent into the device. So, for example, why not an ABB logic controller could speak with MindSphere natively using the open source connectivity that we provided them. Coming to the App Store functionality, it's really how you develop software on top of MindSphere. It's not being done in the MindSphere cloud. Software is being developed as it usually is, using tools like Eclipse or something, and the typical programming languages like Java, JavaScript, Node.js. But the key thing is that we open or we offer to these developers ready-made APIs into the MindSphere platform. The documentation is available for anybody. So during the software programming, it just has to be considered that these MindSphere APIs are used there so that the software can in fact get data out of the platform. This will help a lot in the developers' work as well. The App Store is not yet released. It's coming early next year, and after that we are of course confident that there will be a lot more new functionalities on the MindSphere platform available. All right, so what can Siemens do and what we want to do in this field, in the field of data collection, analyzing data, and getting the value out of that data? As I mentioned, we have a lot of business divisions: industry, building technologies, healthcare, mobility. Virtually, we are present there in any or every aspect of the modern infrastructure, meaning that there is a huge leverage there to have one platform basically to control everything. Typical example is that in any industrial process, you have your process and there's a building outside the process. And these two automation systems in almost every case are not connected to each other. The process has its own and the building has its own. What if you would have one platform to collect data from both the systems and for example, prevent situations where the process is heating up and the building is cooling down and you're virtually wasting energy. Anyway, some of the analytics that we will provide are our fleet management, what I already showed you, one of the basic functionalities of MindSphere. Typical industrial use cases, of course, predictive maintenance. By measuring device vibrations, temperatures, we can start predicting equipment failures. There are some nice software companies out there with ready-made algorithms that'll tell you that this bearing will be damaged with 95% probability in 1 week's time. So you can really react and do the maintenance task before unplanned shutdowns at the plant or the machine occur. Security is, of course, one of the key issues today when we start connecting all these industrial devices to the cloud. Cybersecurity has to be kept in mind. So in MindSphere as well, we can collect data logs from devices, analyze these logs, and really see what's happening in the system network. So we can have reporting systems, for example, alarming system, if something suspicious starts happening, so we can identify cybersecurity threats even before they cause any more damage. Other than industry, of course, our mobility division, they have their own Railigent analytics portfolio, mainly considered for rail traffic and such. All these analytics will be a part of MindSphere in due time. And in our building technologies side, their portfolio features a system called Navigator for efficient energy analytics of a building and the humans that are living or staying in that building. So coming into the business value, there are two main sides to it. So first of all, it's the equipment supplier, so-called OEM point of view, and the equipment operator, end user point of view. First, looking at the OEM, of course, collecting this data, analyzing, it means that with these predictive maintenance algorithms, for example, you can really increase the efficiency of your service. You can come up with new digital services, new business models when you're supplying your machine or whatever the product may be. That enables you also to have a better knowledge of how your product is being used and hence have lower or optimized expenses and costs during the warranty period of that machine. Furthermore, what I'm going to talk to you about next is the feedback loop to research and development. I'll come back to that later, so let's leave that for the time being. For the machine user then, the benefit of this type of data collection and analytics, it's all about availability. Machines and plants, they have to be available at all times. There's no room for unplanned shutdowns anymore if we want to stay competitive. So it's really about increasing uptime, increasing asset availability, and this is something that can be accomplished with proper data collection and analysis. Also optimizing, finding out bottlenecks in the production, optimizing the performance of these assets is a key thing, as well as to increase their own maintenance efficiency. All right, so coming to the point that I just missed is the so-called closed loop innovation with the complete digital twin. And what this really means is that we have probably the concept of digital twin is known to most of you. It's a simulation model of a product or production that is trying to mimic the reality of things. So simulation is something actually that has been there for quite some time. Last 15 to 20 years, we have had different methods of simulating a product or production. But the problem with these simulations is that they're not 100% accurate. You have to make a certain set of assumptions about the reality and then use these assumptions as parameters in your digital twin model. So what IoT really brings into the picture is the so-called digital performance twin. So you can feed back the data from real devices, real products, and use this data to replace the assumptions in the simulation model. That means that your simulation model or digital twin, it will become more and more accurate, and the IoT systems will continuously feed it with updated data meaning that it's a never-ending, self-developing loop of digitalization. So this is the idea. You have your digital twin of the product. In this case, it's probably one of Siemens laptops. Digital twin it's not just a 3D CAD model. It's something more. It has you can really simulate, for example, thermal effects on your product, different forces acting on it. So there's no more need for prototyping. You can do this on your laptop. After that, digital twin of the production, modeling, simulating how the process or plant is behaving, how these devices are being used to produce this product. And then finally, what IoT and MindSphere brings into the picture is the digital twin of the performance of the real product and real production, and feeding this analyzed data back into the simulation model. That's where we start seeing real value, and that's actually something that Siemens calls the digital enterprise. So we have to keep in mind that IoT is not the whole story of the digitalization, it's just one part. This is the big picture. Digitalizing the entire value chain of production, starting from the R&D, product lifecycle management, into actually executing the production, making the products, and then feeding the information back from the real world back to the virtual simulation models. All right, so finally a short recap of the key unique strengths of MindSphere. Obviously, Siemens has a huge global installed base of devices. There's a lot of potential in my mind for these ecosystem players to come in and develop and deploy their services, because the App Store will provide them a brand new global marketplace for offering their services for all the MindSphere and Siemens customers. Openness, I cannot emphasize it enough. It's a game changer. It has to be there, otherwise these platforms won't survive. Openness in every level, in connectivity, in the cloud infrastructure, and in the app development as well. That's the way to go today. And of course, this ecosystem that we're building, what I mentioned earlier, in order to efficiently make the most of all these new technologies like 5G that are coming up. In order to efficiently use it, you have to have an agile ecosystem to do it. And finally, as I mentioned, the big picture, integrating the real world into the virtual model and digitalizing the entire value chain of your plant or production. I hope this was, you got something out of this presentation, and if you want to see the MindSphere system demo in reality, what it looks like, even more concrete things, please come and visit our Siemens team at the booth and let's talk more about it. Thank you very much for everybody.